This is episode 3 of Weekly Laravel Updates.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. So this week, we're doing another deep dive. We've got a whole stack of sources you've shared. It covers quite a bit latest Laravel framework stuff, some key development practices, and even a bit on team communication.
That's right. We've looked at articles from Laravel News, Code Course, the Spady blog, Saucy Kit, and another interesting developer blog, too. And the mission, like always, is to really sift through all this, pull out the most important bits for you.
Yeah, the stuff that actually helps day to day. Your shortcut to staying informed without, getting totally overwhelmed.
Exactly, filtering out the noise.
Okay, so let's get into it. First up, the framework itself. Laravel News covered the v12.15 release. These point releases, they might not be huge headlines, but often pack those little quality of life wins, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's often in these smaller updates you find fixes for those little annoyances. For 12.15, a few things around handling data and types really caught my eye. Like the locale-aware number parsing. That feels like one of those things you don't need often, but when you do, it's a real headache.
Precisely. Yeah, if you've ever tried parsing, say, a number string like 1.234,056, common in Germany, for example, standard PHP functions can just, fail or give you weird results.
Right, because Floatcall would probably just see the comma and stop, giving you 1.234.
Exactly. So the Illuminate support number class now has parse, parseint, and parsefloat. The key thing is you can pass the locale, like locale.day. So number.parse 1.23456 locale.day. It just figures out the separators for you.
Oh, nice.
And parse is flexible too. You can pass a type like number formatter, type EET64 if you need something specific. It saves writing that custom fiddly parsing logic.
That's genuinely useful, especially for anything international. Okay, what else? I saw something about handling enums from request data.
Oh, yeah, just a cleaner way to set a default value. Before, you might do something like request atom chart type enum.class, and then maybe a null coalescing operator, like not chart type enum.bar.
Which works fine, but it's a bit clunky.
Yeah, a little bit. Now you can just pass that default right into the enum method as the third argument. So request enum chart type enum.class, chart type enum.bar. It's small, but makes that common pattern much more readable.
I like those little syntax improvements. They add up.
Yeah.
And speaking of developer experience, the stringable class got a new hash helper.
Yes. If you're using the Fluent stricker, for chaining string operations, you can now just tack on .hash within that chain, like hash xx3, take 10. It integrates hashing really smoothly. Before, you might have had to use pipe or break the chain somehow.
Much cleaner. And a couple of things for testing too, right?
Definitely. Test response now has assert client error. It's purely for readability, really. Instead of this assert true response of the client error, you just write response assert client error, clearer intent.
Yeah, I like that. And assert direct to action.
Handy for testing redirects that specifically target a controller action. You can assert the response redirects to, say, myController.class show using response assert redirect to action. Again, just makes the test more explicit about what it's checking.
Okay, this next one feels interesting. The hashtag context attribute, especially for things like seeders.
Yeah, this uses PHP 8 attributes to inject values stored in the application's execution context. The example in the source was for seeders, and I think that's a really powerful use case.
So, like, if one seeder creates an admin user,
right,
and then another seeder needs to create posts for that specific user.
Exactly that scenario. In the foo seeder, after creating the user, you'd maybe do context.admin users. Then, in your second seeder, you can type hint a parameter in the run method and use the attribute public function run hashtag context admin user.
And Laravel's container sees that attribute and automatically injects the user you stored earlier.
Precisely. It handles passing that dependency between seeders really cleanly, much better than, querying for the user by email again, which can be brittle.
That is smart. Yeah, definitely simplifies coordinating complex seeding setups.
It really does. So yeah, those are some highlights from 12.15, shows the framework keeps refining that developer experience.
For sure. Okay, moving away from the framework updates specifically, the sources also touched on some useful, maybe sometimes overlooked points about eloquent models and collections.
Yes, these are often areas where little nuances can trip people up or where newer methods just offer a better way, like filtering model attributes.
We've always had only to pick the attributes we want, but often you actually want most things except maybe one or two sensitive fields.
Right, and that's where the accept method comes in, which Harris Raftopoulos highlighted in Laravel News. It's often just more intuitive to say user accept task-word remember token.
Yeah, rather than listing out every single other column.
Exactly. It's great when you're prepping data for a view or an API response and just need to exclude certain things. And it works with relationships too.
Makes total sense. Reads cleaner. And sticking with models and collections, there's that common pitfall Freek van der Herten wrote about on the Spady blog. The difference between to array and all on a collection.
Yes. This is a really subtle but important one. When you call to array on a collection of eloquent models, it doesn't just give you a plain PHP array of the model objects. It actually goes through and calls to array on each model inside the collection too.
Oh, okay, so the models themselves get turned into arrays.
Exactly. You end up with an array of arrays, basically. If what you actually want is a plain array containing the model objects themselves, maybe to pass to something else or chain other methods, you need to use all.
Got it. So user.all gives you an array of user objects.
Right.
Whereas user.all to array gives you an array of arrays representing the user data.
Precisely. Knowing that difference can save you some real head scratching when you're expecting objects and getting arrays, or vice versa. It's one of those classic gotchas.
Definitely good to remember. Okay, shifting gears now to something absolutely critical, handling money. The Code Course article by Alex Garrett Smith really hammered home the best practices here.
Yeah, this is one area you just can't afford to get wrong. The golden rule, as the article stresses, is absolutely never use floats or doubles for storing or calculating money.
Even though something like $9.99 looks like a float, why is it so problematic?
It comes down to how computers handle floating point math. There are tiny inherent precision issues. It might seem insignificant, like calculating 25% of $8.99 might give you 2.2475 using floats. But these tiny errors can add up across lots of calculations, leading to incorrect rounding and actual financial discrepancies. Not good.
Okay, no floats. So what's the right approach then?
The standard recommended way is to store money as an unsigned integer representing the smallest currency unit, usually cents. So $8.99 becomes $8.99.
And in the database migration?
You'd use table unsigned integer or maybe unsigned big integer for larger values.
I mean, you do calculations with those integers.
Exactly. So that 25% discount becomes $899.25, which gives you $224.75. Even though there's a decimal there temporarily, you can reliably round it, say, to 225 cents, and then convert back to $2.25 when needed. Integer math is exact until that final step.
Right, but doing all that conversion back and forth manually seems error-prone itself.
It totally would be, and that's why you use a dedicated library. The article recommends the Laravel Money package, which is basically a nice Laravel wrapper around the very solid MoneyFP Money library.
Okay. So Laravel Money adds the Laravel convenience layer on top of a battle-tested money library.
Precisely. Once you install it, Composer require Laravel Money. It makes handling money much safer and clearer. Using the facade, that discount calculation could look like money.usd product price multiplied coupon percentage divide 100.
And getting the formatted string, like $2.25?
You just call the format method on the resulting money object. So DAC divide 100 format. The object handles converting cents back to dollars, adding the currency symbol, formatting, all that stuff.
Nice. And calculations like subtraction?
Yep, straightforward. Final price, money.usd, product price subtract. Discount money object. It just works with the money objects.
What about different currencies? Can it handle, say, euros or pounds?
Oh yeah, it supports tons of currencies. You can set a default, use the money helper, money product price GBP, or use static methods like money.gdp 1000.
And the casting feature looked like a real game changer for models.
It absolutely is. You add a cast to your model, like cast's price, money into your cast.class, USD. Note the colon class, and the currency code.
Okay.
Now, whenever you access product price, you don't get the raw integer, like $8.99. You automatically get a fully fledged money object.
Whoa. So calculating the discount directly on the model attribute becomes just product price multiply.
Exactly. Much cleaner. And even cooler, if you store the currency code in another column, say currency, you can use price money integer cast.class.currency. It'll dynamically create the money object using the right currency for that specific row.
That's really powerful. And the best part must be displaying it in views, right?
Totally. With the cast setup, you can just do InBlade or Livewire. Since it's a money object, it automatically calls format and outputs the correctly formatted string, like 8.99 cents or 12,050 on robe. No manual formatting needed in the view.
That package feels like a must-have for anything dealing with money. Seriously solves a huge potential headache.
Couldn't agree more. Removes a major source of bugs and makes complex logic much simpler.
Okay, let's move on. The Saucy Kit article by Amos gave a really great rundown of Laravel best practices. It's quite comprehensive, but maybe we can pull out a few key principles that are always worth revisiting.
Agreed. It's a solid resource. One of the fundamentals they rightly push is fat models, skinny controllers.
Right, the idea that database logic, query scopes, model-specific actions belong in the eloquent model, while the controller just handles the HTTP request response flow, maybe calls a service class, but doesn't contain complex queries itself.
Exactly. So instead of a big query builder chain in your controller action, you'd have something clean like user.active, recently registered, defined of scopes on the user model. Or maybe user update status, active, as a model method. Keeps controllers lean and logic reusable.
And related to that is the single responsibility principle, making sure classes and methods do just one thing.
Yeah, this is about breaking down complexity. If a controller method is validating, saving data, sending notifications, logging, that's too much. Extract those concerns into smaller, focused methods, or even dedicated classes like a user service or a notification dispatcher. Makes everything easier to test, understand, and change later.
Which feeds back into keeping business logic out of controllers and definitely out of routes.
Yes. Controllers handle HTTP. Services or models handle the core logic. Routes just map URLs to controller actions. Clean separation.
Something crucial for reliability, they mentioned. Database transactions.
Oh, absolutely vital. If you're doing something that involves multiple database rights, like creating an order and updating inventory, you need to wrap it in a transaction. Use DB begin transaction, then your operations, then db.commit. If anything fails in between, you call DB rollback. This ensures the whole operation succeeds or fails together, keeping your data consistent. Atomic operations.
And a classic performance killer, the N+1 query problem.
Yes. This often bites you in blade views. You fetch, say, post.all, then inside your @for, you access post author name.
Right.
Laravel runs one query for the post, then another query inside the loop for each post's author. 100 posts, 101 queries. Ouch.
And the fix is eager loading before the view.
Exactly. In your controller or service, do post.withAuthor-get. This fetches all posts and all their authors in typically just 2 queries. Huge performance win. Essential optimization.
And for really large data sets, don't load everything at once.
Right, use chunking. Instead of user.all, which might exhaust memory with millions of users, use user.chunk500, function user.
Right.
It processes records in manageable batches.
Okay, a few rapid-fire ones from their lists that are good reminders. Use constants.
Yep. Usertype.admin is way better than hard-coding admin, more maintainable.
Store dates as objects.
Use the date-time cast in your model. You get carbon instances, makes date manipulation and formatting reliable.
Inject dependencies.
Use constructor injection, construct protected some service, instead of new service, inside methods. Makes things testable and flexible.
Avoid using .env directly in code.
Use config services.apic instead of nvapic. Keeps configuration structured and cacheable.
Keep code documentation minimal.
Focus on writing clear, self-documenting code rather than excessive comments explaining what the code does. A good method name is better than a long comment.
Align on coding standards.
Consistency matters. Use a tool like Laravel Pint, vendor bin Pint, to automatically enforce a standard style.
And finally, the big one. Test, test, and test.
Crucial. Automated tests, feature tests, unit tests, catch bugs, give you confidence to refactor, serve as documentation, improve your code design, help collaboration, enable CI/CD. The list goes on. You don't need 100% coverage immediately, but testing your key routes and business logic is really non-negotiable for serious applications.
That Saucy Kit article really is a goldmine of solid advice. And it's worth noting the author built the site using their own SaaS boilerplate, Saucy Kit.
Yeah, eating their own dog food, as they say. Good sign.
Okay, let's switch gears one last time. This one's a bit different, less about code, more about how we talk about code. Inspired by the Never Just blog.
Yes, this one definitely struck a chord. It's about that phrase, why don't you just?
Oh boy, the just. We've all been there, right?
Okay.
You're wrestling with some nightmare bug or complex feature, and someone comes along, maybe meaning well, and suggests something that sounds incredibly simple, prefaced with just.
Exactly. And while the suggestion might seem simple on the surface, to the person deep in the problem, it can feel really dismissive, like it ignores all the complexity they're dealing with, all the things they've already tried.
Because it's almost never just that simple, is it? The blog post used that great iceberg analogy. The advice giver sees the tiny tip,
while the person doing the work is navigating the massive hidden part underwater. The legacy code, the weird constraints, the tech debt, the history nobody remembers.
Sorry, your just do X completely misses their, yeah, but Y and Z prevent X, and we tried X prime 2 weeks ago and it broke staging. It can really shut down collaboration.
It totally can. Makes the person feel unheard or maybe even incompetent for not seeing the simple solution.
So what's the alternative? Instead of leading with, why don't you just...
The source suggests leading with empathy and curiosity. Try asking for context first. Hey, can you walk me through what you've tried? Or what are the main blockers you're hitting? Or offer suggestions more gently. I wonder if approach X might work. Or have you considered Y? Maybe there's a reason that's not feasible. Acknowledge the difficulty. Yeah, this looks really tricky. Be humble. I might be missing context, but what about...
Basically, listen first. Understand the hidden iceberg before suggesting how to navigate around the tip. Respect the effort that's already gone in.
Precisely. I remember spending hours debugging this bizarre intermittent issue once. Only happened under specific load conditions on one server.
Uh-oh.
And someone breezed by and said, why don't you just restart the web server? Like, yeah, thanks. Step one tried 6 hours ago.
Oh man, classic. It perfectly highlights that disconnect, doesn't it? A really good reminder to approach these things with a bit more humility and focus on understanding first.
Absolutely. Small change in phrasing, potentially big impact on teamwork.
Okay, well that pretty much wraps up our deep dive for this week. We went from specific Laravel 12.15 features
Like the number parsing and context attribute.
to those tricky model and collection nuances.
Bear versus all.
A critical look at handling money properly with integers and the Laravel money package.
Essential stuff.
Then a big sweep through some core Laravel best practices from SocialKit.
Fat models, testing, transactions, all that good stuff.
And finish with that insight on communication, avoiding the dreaded just.
Quite a range. Hopefully pulling out these key nuggets from the sources gives you some valuable takeaways and things to apply in your own projects.
And a huge thank you is due to the authors and sources we drew from today. Paul Redmond and Harris Raktopoulos at Laravel News, Freek Vander Herten and Spady, Alex Garrett Smith in Code Course, Amos from SocialKit, and the writer of the Never Just blog. Really appreciate their insights.
And as always, you'll find links to all those original articles right there in the show notes if you want to explore any of this further.
We'd genuinely love to hear from you what stood out. Any questions on these topics? Let us know what you found useful or what else you'd like us to tackle.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe this week, keep an eye out for those communication icebergs, both in code and in conversation.
Okay, that's it for us. See you next week.